Hello, my name is Sarah Day. This is my informative speech, and now let me show you my audience. Hold on, I'm gonna get stuck. There we go. Here they are.
Hello.
Here they are. Okay, now I have to make sure that I'm pointed back at myself.
And a little bit more, I think.
All right. Start the timer. Life is full of burning questions. What are we here for? What happens after we die? Where's Waldo? But I think the most burning question of all has got to be, why do men have nipples? While not widely known, the image of the breastfeeding man dates back thousands of years. The Bible provides one in Numbers 11:12. The Talmud contains an even more literal example. In more recent times, Charles Darwin observed in The Descent of Man, it is well known that in the males of all mammals, including man, rudimentary mammae exist. These, in several instances, have become well developed and have yielded a copious supply of milk. Since Darwin, male lactation has been observed in other animals, including 2 species of Old World fruit bats, the domestic goat, the guinea pig, and humans. Yet, according to a Slate.com article entitled Man Milk, My Curious Quest to Breastfeed, this fact of nature has been ignored to the point where its opposite assumption, that men are physically incapable of producing milk, has been used to advocate for government control of human relationships. Now, I'm not one of those women who thinks that the sexes need necessarily be equal in all things, but the more I learned about male lactation, the more curious I became. I'm 15 weeks pregnant and I plan to breastfeed. Is this something that my husband would be interested in doing? Did I want him to? Why does male lactation even exist? The fundamentals of lactation, the circumstances which could cause a male to lactate, and why they would even want to are all paramount to understanding this phenomenon. Now, the general milk production in humans is a relatively simple process. The breast tissue of both men and women contains small clusters of alveoli that produce milk in response to a hormone produced by the pituitary gland called prolactin. Now, according to Man Milk, under normal circumstances, women have about 1/3 as much prolactin as men. However, during pregnancy, they have about 10 times as much. The article goes on to say that in theory, you don't have to be pregnant to lactate, you just need the hormone rush. Now that you know how breast milk is made and that men can produce it in theory, let's examine some of the natural and historical occurrences of male lactation. Many babies, both male and female, lactate in the weeks after birth. Now, this is due to an excess of prolactin being transferred through the placenta from the mother. And a small number of older boys and men also release a milky substance from their nipples in a condition called male galactorrhea. This fluid has been found to be scientifically similar to that of lactating women. Cirrhosis, which is a form of liver disease, inhibits the body's ability to remove hormones from the bloodstream. According to the Cell Press article entitled Male Lactation, Why Not, and Is It Care?, 500 Japanese POWs during World War II all started to lactate after months of starvation. What happened was during their weeks of limited food supply, their livers, testicles, and pituitary glands began to fail. After they were rescued and received more adequate nutrition, their testes and pituitary function went back to normal, but their livers were slow. And so they had a buildup of hormones, and that caused them to lactate. Obesity and alcoholism can also cause your liver to shut down with similar results. Prolactin isn't available as a pill or a shot, but there are several prescription medications that can stimulate its production. Now, these are commonly given to women who either have trouble with their milk production or have recently adopted a baby and would like to breastfeed. And then when a baby suckles on your nipple, the movement activates receptors that connect to the brain and stimulate the pituitary. And since men and women have the same receptors in their nipples, this should work just as well for men, which is why you could just try pumping your breasts. Now, there are several ways men could begin to lactate, but with the availability of formulas and milk banks, why would they even want to? Even for women, the process can be difficult. A researcher at Canada's Goldfarb Breastfeeding Clinic monitored 228 surrogate and adoptive mothers and found that only 31% reached a full milk supply. An article in Discover magazine entitled Father's Milk reminds us that females have been undergoing natural selection for milk production for tens of millions of years. In all the species in which male lactation has been found to be physically possible, lactating men still produce far less milk than do females. And in an article on OtherSideOfScience.com entitled Male Lactation, There's Probably Something Wrong with You, Nabi Leong outlined all of the copious reasons why you shouldn't want to breastfeed as a man, as well as all the diseases you might have if you suddenly found yourself leaking a milky substance from your nipples. However, for every naysayer, I found an affirmative example. In Milkmen, Fathers Who Breastfeed, Laura Shanley spoke of a friend of hers who sent her a letter about a gay couple who had recently adopted a baby. They were very adamant that this baby received breast milk, and so one of the men went out and bought a breast pump and pumped every 2 hours during the day and once in the night. And by the time the baby was 12 weeks, he was feeding her exclusively, and he fed her for the next 8 months. Man Milk talked about the Aka Pygmy tribe in Central Africa, where fathers suckle their children when the mothers are away. Not all of the men lactated, but they did seem to understand that this gesture was just as important emotionally as it was physiologically. And so many more. I think it's safe to say that women are better suited to breastfeeding than men are. But for all our assumptions about breastfeeding, and the abiding truth that exists is that it exists to nourish and comfort a new life. If milk production in men was truly unnatural, it wouldn't exist. Maybe nature intended it to be a backup system in times of strife. Babies want to be loved, nursed, and nurtured. The gender of the person doing it is not important. If the walls of gender could be broken down and a child would benefit, it might just be worth it. Thank you. And now let me show you my audience. They stayed.
Although I can hear. Yeah.